Chapter 12 of All the Brothers Were Valiant. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Roger Moline. All the Brothers Were Valiant by Ben Ames Williams. Chapter 12. The Nathan Ross changed course that day, and the word went around the ship. It passed from man to man. There was whispering, and there were dark looks flung toward Joel. Joel kept the deck all day, silent and watchful and waiting. Mark spoke to him once or twice, asking what he meant to do. Joel told him nothing. He had fought out his fight the night before. He knew himself. Mark and Finch talked together during the morning. Joel watched them without comment. Later he saw Mark speak to the other mates, one by one. At dinner in the cabin the mates were silent. Their eyes had something of shame in them, and something of venomous hate. They already hated Joel, whom they planned to wrong. The day was fair, and the wind drove them smoothly. There was no work to be done, never a spout on the sea. Joel, watching once or twice the whispering groups of idle men, wished a whale might be sighted, and once he sent Morrell and Varde to find tasks for the men to do, and kept them at it through the long afternoon, scraping, scrubbing, painting. Priss kept to her cabin. When she did not appear at breakfast, Joel went to her door and knocked. She called to him, "I've a headache. I'm going to rest." He ordered that food be sent to her. He stayed on deck till late that night, but with the coming of night the ship had grown quiet, and most of the men were below in the fo'c's'le. So at last Joel left the deck to Varde and went below. He sat down at his desk and wrote up the day's log. Priss came to him there. She had been in bed, and she wore a heavy dressing gown over her night garments. Her hair was braided, hanging across her shoulders. She sat down beside the desk, and when Joel could fight back the misery in his eyes, he looked toward her and asked, "Is your head better?" She said very quietly, "Joel, I want to ask you something." He wanted her sympathy so terribly, and her tone was so cool and so aloof, that he winced. But he said, "Very well." "Mark says he asked you to take the Nathan Ross to get the pearls he left on that island. Is that true?" "Yes," said Joel. "He says you would not do it." "I will not do it," Joel told her. "He says," said Priss quietly, "that you are afraid. He says that was your own word, when he accused you. Is that true?" If there had been any sympathy or understanding in her voice or in her eyes, he would have told her. Told her that it was for his ship and not for himself that he was afraid. But there was not. She was so cold and hard. He would not seek to justify himself to her. "Yes," he said quietly, "I used that word." She turned her eyes quickly away from his, that he might not see the pain in hers. She rose to go back to her cabin. As she reached the door, some one knocked on the door that led to the main cabin, and without waiting for word from Joel, that door opened. Mark stood there. He came in with Finch and Varde and old Hooper and young Morrell on his heels. Priss shrank back into her cabin, closed the door to a crack. listened. Joel got to his feet. "What is it?" he asked. Mark bowed low, faced his brother with a cold and triumphant smile. "These gentlemen have asked me," he explained, "to tell you that we have decided to go fetch the pearls." End of chapter 12. Recording by Roger Moline.